Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's virtual design review meeting. Today on our agenda, we have a development proposal at 1866 Rymal Road East in Hamilton. I am Edward Winter, the host of this meeting, and David Clusio will be chairing this meeting. In addition to panel members, we have the applicant team, city staff, members of the public, and media observing this meeting. Members of the public are welcomed here to observe the meeting only, and there will be no comments or questions from the public today. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the City of Hamilton's Design Review Panel webpage. Lastly, a reminder to our panelists, please keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking. Thank you everyone for attending the Design Review Panel. David, please begin when you're ready.
Welcome everybody. Edward, can you confirm that the session is being recorded?
Yes, I confirm.
And that if there are any changes to the agenda today?
No changes.
And also, I'm assuming that there is no conflict of interest with any of the panelists and their silence is basically an agreement with that statement. On the agenda today is the review of 1866 Rymal Road East. The lead planner in the file is Devin Morton. Good afternoon, Devin. We are ready for your presentation, and please to keep the presentation under 10 minutes.
Great, thanks, David. I'm just going to take a minute to share my screen here. Please let me know once you can see that.
Yeah, we can see that.
Go. Okay, so as previously stated, today we are here to discuss a potential development proposal that contemplates an 8-story mixed-use building containing a retirement home, daycare, and a range of small-scale commercial uses with 63 vehicular parking spaces and an approximate density of 283 units per hectare. So we'll start with an aerial view of the subject lands municipally known as 1866 Rymal Road East. Next, we have some site photos, including this photo of the subject lands from Rymal Road. Here we have a view of the subject lands looking east along Rymal Road and looking west to Bishop Ryan Secondary School. And finally, this photo is looking north across Rymal Road, where conditional approval has been granted for an 8-story mixed-use building. Here you can see that adjacent to the subject lands are existing stacked townhouses. And in the immediate area, you will also find existing single detached homes and also a park for recreation. So here's the conceptual site plan. We've got a rendering of the south-facing facade, the north-facing facade, and here we see that the subject lands are identified as secondary corridor as per Schedule E of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, or the UHOP. The UHOP says that secondary corridors serve to link nodes, employment areas, and primary corridors, and are the focus of reurbanization activities, including population growth, private and public redevelopment, and infrastructure investment. Further, the UHOP says that secondary corridors are intended to accommodate retail and mixed-use built forms and are generally characterized by single-use buildings. The intent of the plan is to evolve the secondary corridors to an increasing proportion of multiple-story mixed-use buildings in small cluster locations with at-grade retail and service commercial uses. The UHOP continues and says that these corridors should support and facilitate development that contributes to the economic and social viability of adjacent neighborhoods, respect the character of existing neighborhoods where appropriate, and create a compact mixed-use environment. Next, we see that the subject lands are designated District Commercial on Schedule E1 of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, but are further designated in the Rymal Road Secondary Plan as detailed in the next slide. So the subject lands are further designated local commercial on Land Use Plan Map B.5.2-1 of the Rymal Road Secondary Plan, which calls for a compact urban form to promote a sense of community, encourages the mixing of uses, establishes a vibrant neighborhood setting, encourages pedestrian travel and other alternative modes of movement, while creating residential densities which support transit and protect natural heritage features. The subject lands are currently zoned community commercial C3 zone, and the community commercial C3 zone permits a range of commercial uses, including but not limited to some of the following: a commercial school, day nursery, emergency shelter, financial establishment, laboratory, medical clinic, motor vehicle gas bar, motor vehicle service station, office, restaurants, and various retail. The zoning bylaw currently permits a maximum height of 14 meters, and because the subject lands abut a residential zone, a minimum rear yard of 7.5 meters and a minimum interior side yard of 3.0 meters is required. And finally, these are just some specific areas of discussion for the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. We're ready for the consultant to provide additional information. Please keep the presentation to under 10 minutes as well.
Excuse me, is it my turn?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. Let me bring up my presentation.
Okay, we can see it.
Thank you. So my presentation overlaps with Devin a little bit, but so I go faster on the things that he touched on. Basically, this is the location of the site and the zoning being commercial, district commercial, and just a close-up view showing the commercial area that we're in. This is the site, and these are the current uses with the townhouses, the school, more commercial, and single residential on the north side that is evolving into higher density. This is one of the projects that is already got approval in principle right across from our site that is already 8 stories. And as we go into our site, just a close-up view, I want to point out that the placement of the building is positioned closer to the street, taking advantage of the corner and also helping emphasize the corner at this intersection and away from the neighboring residential. So we far exceed the minimum setback requirements on both the south and the east. And we're also planning to do enhanced landscaping up against the residential uses. There's already a fence, but we'll enhance that with more dense planting. This is the uses on the ground floor. So facing Rymal, we're planning to have some sort of commercial / retail, could be a little coffee shop, maybe a hair salon, those type of uses. We're hoping to be able to attract a daycare in the corner. And this side of the ground floor will be the entrance to the retirement home, a lobby, and some of the utilitarian areas for deliveries and garbage and so on. The entrance is in the corner, giving access both to the daycare and the retirement home, whereas the commercial has access all the way around, internal to the site and off from the street. These are some of the floor plans just for interest. The basement floor plan has some amenity spaces that are associated with the retirement home. The ground floor, you can see the commercial areas, they can be divided and leased based on need and usage. About just over 2,000 square feet of daycare with an outdoor play area. And this is the entrance of the retirement home, kind of a lobby, little lounge, some offices, and then just delivery spaces in the back. So we moved the dining and the lounge areas to the second floor, including the kitchen, so that we free up the ground floor for more commercial uses, which is part of the zoning and which we believe will help enhance the street and the livability of the within the community. And we have some the floor is partially occupied with the retirement home units. And then on the upper floors, we have more units. They're mostly studio or one bedroom. And we also have some more dining and lounge areas that are kind of sporadically on the various floors. Then we can see the one bedrooms and the two bedrooms, more lounges and kind of separating the living areas. This is the view from the corner. You can see with the treatment how we're taking advantage of the recess in the corner to emphasize the relationship of the building to the corner of the street. And we were able to locate the daycare play area in there. But then we use this mass in the middle to create lounge areas on the floors where the corridors intersect, and which will both provide views for the residents, but it will also enhance the corner. We created a base, which is similar height to the existing townhouse units. And most of the uses within this base is the commercial uses. So we, on the right hand on Columbus Gate, we have the lounge or the entrance associated with the retirement home, the dining and lounge on the second floor, and on the ground floor facing Rymal, we have the retail. And above that, it's all retirement home uses. This is a view of how we envision this corner is going to be evolving. This is the 8-story building across the street that got approval in principle. So we can see already that within short order, this corner or intersection is evolving in the way that the zoning and official plan has envisioned. This is a view from the interior to the site. The podium continues and the top is broken up with different materials and colors. The entrance is in the middle. We're trying to kind of create more opening, whether along the street or inside, with more glass areas. These are the materials we're envisioning of using, mostly taken from the context of the site, with kind of a red-brown brick and with aluminum panels in light and dark gray, and a strong emphasis to that 3-story height, even though it is 2-story, but 4 meters, it's equal to 3-story in terms of the similar height to the townhouses. A close-up view of the corner at the intersection, structural elements in some landscaping, adding more interest. And then this is an idea of a patio associated with the retail uses where there could be a coffee shop. This is the driveway entrance of the Rymal. More close-up views. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rima. So we will turn over to the panel members to see if they have any clarification questions. So Danya.
Hi, thank you, Rima and Devin, for your presentation. I just have a question. How many units are being proposed, or residential units, if that's what they're called in a retirement form?
168.
68? Okay, thank you. That's everything for me.
Jennifer.
Thanks, David. So far in the design, have there been any initiatives incorporated to address sustainability efforts?
We are early in the design process. We're hoping that we'll be able to submit the rezoning application shortly following the result of this meeting. But yes, definitely, not only because the code compels us to do so, but also it's a good practice. But the exact the details of what we're doing hasn't been discussed yet.
Right. Okay, that's my only question for now.
Hoda, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you for presentation. I have a question regarding the commercial along the main street. I was wondering why they need to be, why they are not accessible from the main street and they have stairs along there. Is there any reason that they are not in the ground level?
They are accessible in terms of accessibility standards from internal to the site, but right from the street, yeah, one has to go up the stairs, and that was to be able to bring in light into the basement amenities, to be able to have some high level windows.
Thank you. That is for me.
I don't know that I have any questions. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the panelists for their recommendations and comment. So we'll start with Dana.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for the presentations. From a massing point of view, I know Devin, that was one of your questions. I appreciate Rima, you putting the building kind of towards the corner and addressing both streets. With the context of the other larger building or 8-story building on the other side of the street, as well as the width of the right-of-way, I find that this building kind of fits contextually within the surrounding area. So I have no concerns there. I do have a couple of recommendations for design changes as it relates to the parking and location of uses and design. The parking, you have 63 parking spaces for 68 units. I'm wondering if that maybe is a little on the high side. I know it's less than what the zoning provides, but I'm wondering from a market perspective. I find that there is a little bit too much parking on the site or surface parking on the site. So some of my recommendations would be to either have some partially below grade. I know you have units below grade, but maybe relocating some of the uses that are below grade, and replacing that with parking. An alternative would be, I would have no problem with you going an extra story to make up those units. Height and massing is not my concern at this point. But I do think that both the daycare and the seniors would benefit from more amenity space, outdoor amenity space in a garden area behind the building. So right now you kind of have a parking that circulates through the back of the building as well as provides an L shape around the outside. I would recommend maintaining that outside area for parking and access, but taking that area that's right adjacent to the building, behind the building, and turning that into a garden. And I think we looked at it before this meeting, and I don't think you would lose too many parking spaces, particularly if you double loaded the L-shaped part with parking on both sides. So all that being said, I would look at alternative ways to either reduce the number of surface parking and increase the garden and amenity space at grade and on site moving forward. My other concern is around just the daycare. I love that you have a mixed use building that has commercial, that has daycare, and that also has the retirement facility. And I just want to make sure that you guys are thinking critically about where you're locating the daycare. I don't have much of a strong preference on where it's located. I know at the corner right now, the pedestrian wind study showed a lot of wind at that location, particularly as it relates to the outdoor play space for the kids. Right now, they are proposing a screening. So if you do maintain that as the daycare location, I recommend definitely pedestrian screening be implemented on that corner. Because there's nothing worse than kind of an inhospitable play area for kids that's affected by wind. So looking at screening or other measures, maybe partially covered, just to ensure that kids can comfortably play outside. And lastly, my other comment would be around, I guess also just ensuring that, you know, the commercial spaces are viable and accessible to the street. I know it's probably tricky with the basement use to have those kind of at grade, but looking at that as you move forward to make sure that those can remain commercial because the zone itself is inherently a parent commercial zone. And then if we want to have 15-minute neighborhoods, we need to have commercial uses that are walkable to residential uses. So I would hate to see this become kind of just all residential. And lastly, just with the nature of the users of this building being seniors as well as children, I would explore as you move forward to detailed design, looking at maybe some color, some more interest or excitement as it relates to the building. I think it's great that you're looking at brown because there's a lot of brown in the adjacent areas and you're working with that neighborhood context. But just given that there's like seniors and kids, I would think maybe adding like some accent colors or even like a mural kind of at that corner outside, I think would really make the building just a bit more fun considering you have, people that love fun that are occupying the building. So I think that's everything for me.
Thank you, Dana. Jennifer.
Thanks, David, and thank you for your presentations. I agree with a lot of the comments that Dana has raised, but I'll go through my particular comments on her comments, building on those. I agree. I think the massing is completely appropriate for this corner, and going one story higher wouldn't be a problem to me, and that will come up later in some of my subsequent points. I think my biggest concern is the location of the daycare. Great to have activity right on that corner and visible to the seniors lounges, but Rymal Road is a busy street, and for noise pollution, for privacy, we were wondering as a group if that's the right location for the daycare, and not to find solutions for you, but if it was swapped with some of the commercial so that the daycare could benefit from a garden that could be built on the south side with the reduction of parking. So all of those things go hand in hand. I have some concern about the units below grade. I understand there are light wells there, and pushing up the ground floor to get some clear story lighting into those units is a move to support those units, but I'm not sure it makes the best unit or the best situation for accessibility to the commercial units. Being a seniors development, like a drugstore or a coffee shop, something would be great in those commercial units, but having them accessible without stairs so that wheelchairs could get in there, or people who walk with a cane or can't do stairs, in order to make those commercial units viable, I think they need to be accessible. And that may in turn make the basement units not viable. That I think we need to prioritize a few things there. And then finally, on architectural expression, I appreciate the way that the design is built into the base logic, and the upper stories, and the differentiation of materials. I think the superstructure that's on the base, that's outlined in the light gray or the white, has some logic to it, but that logic breaks down at points, particularly the corners. And I'm wondering if that it's a grounding device, and I think it could be stronger in its logic to support the rest of the development. So those are all of my comments. Thank you.
Hoda.
Yes, I would like to echo my colleague's point of view, and again try to describe mine on the same issues. First of all, I totally agree the density and the mixed use. I appreciate that you try to put daycare and long-term center, retirement center, and commercial together. That's really what we would like to see in such a neighborhood, and because of that, we would like to see more people coming and going. So accessibility from the street is very important, especially for the commercial. And very nice, in my point of view, the corner that you designed. It's nice if it works with the commercial and to be inviting and let people get in. And having the daycare, I believe I suggest to have it at the back of the site and not exposing little kids to the all crowded and the pollution of the main street and everything like that. So that would be related to offering nicer garden in the backyard that little kids and seniors and the residents of the building could get benefit of that. Yeah, I think it's generally I try to relate all my comments together that could help to find spots for all of this daycare, garden, and for parking lots. My colleagues has offered nice solution, having a bit less spots or partial of the parking lots could be underground. That's the way to try and design and find another way to solve this solution. So I appreciate generally the design, and I hope you find a nice solution for residents to get benefit as well as the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Hoda. So in many ways, I support the comments of my colleagues, and maybe I'll elaborate on a few points. I agree that the site at present seems to have too high a percentage of asphalt on it relative to outside amenity areas. It would be, as I think maybe some re-examination of the site as discussed earlier that might be able to provide a larger internal garden or amenity space or breakout space from a relocated daycare. I agree that the massing seems appropriate. In fact, I almost felt that the corner treatment was very successful. And certainly I think the corner lounge areas for the residents, I think, is quite an appealing solution. The thing that was a bit disappointing about it actually was that it was so successful with the V columns and whatnot. To me, that said, hey, this is an exciting entry to this facility. And it turned out that, of course, it's the daycare outdoor space. And so I think at an urban level, the message that you're sending out there is really that's admittedly in a suburban kind of condition with larger arterial roads, you end up having a kind of almost maybe a little bit more of a symbolic pedestrian entrance that faces onto the street, and then internally, you know, a lot more activity, actually people getting dropped off are part of that. I think that at presently, so I guess what I'm saying there is I think that you could maintain that kind of composition and whatnot, but I just think you have an opportunity to maybe thread an actual entry in through there from that corner and for example, if you did rearrange the ground program components, that there was a commercial component instead of the daycare at the corner there that might be, you know, the Starbucks or whatever, and that in association with an entry would, I think, be would reinforce the potential significance of that corner as a part of the urban fabric and address a lot of these ambitions that we have in terms of animating the street and really making a true mixed use development successful. And so I think that, the other panelists have commented about how the challenges when you have a raised level facing the street for commercial, it really is not the most viable one. So I think that the relationship along Rymal, where you have that split level condition, I think you really should re-examine that and see if there isn't through manipulation of the ground floor, there might be some more viable or more potentially successful commercial there. I really question the basement apartments there. I'm kind of surprised that you would be considering that, and I think that I would really go back to question about the viability of that as a strategy. And as the others have said, maybe the solution is that you either eliminate them or maybe they get relocated to an extra floor, which is 8 or 9 stories. I don't think is going to make a difference, as is implied in the other comments that you received. In terms of the internal layout, I think that the drop off for the actual drop off right now isn't really particularly believable in terms of how people might drop off at that inner corner there at the inner part of the building. Also, the loading facility there seems like you'd end up parking cars in the entry drive aisle, or vehicles within the entry drive aisle to move materials in and out. So I think that needs to probably be re-examined. And I agree that the 2-story base is making some, is a good strategy to try and link it into the lower level townhouses is to the side. I'm not going to say which direction it is. I get confused sometimes. But as Jennifer was saying, I think that could be refined a bit more and made a little bit more of an integral treatment. Not some of these outer kind of moves seem to be very, the little protruding walls that make the corners and things like that. I think it would be worth considering whether there might be more robust and integral to the actual contents of the building as a sort of the stage frontish nature of some of that seems a little worth considering. And again, I do feel, as others have said, that the strength, there's a lot of good things with this project, and I think part of the strength is the mixed use nature of it, that the daycare and the commercial combination, even though it's a relatively modest amount of commercial, I think that it's fundamental to the success of the project, really at an urban level, is to not just turn it into in the long run a residential components, because the commercial is not developed in a way that's successful and amenable to their viability. And similarly, I think there are challenges with the daycare in its present location in terms of sunlight, on the north side of the building, and the other comments that others have said about its position relative to the fairly active roadways. I think that there's an opportunity to play around on that ground level, really, and some of the things in the basement as well that might take this, to the next level, and I think improve the project and improve the urban condition that results from it. So I don't know if you have any other comments at this or questions, I say, of the panelists, but I think otherwise, I think I know actually, Devin, you had your hand up earlier at a point where we were talking about reducing the parking. And so, or Jennifer, maybe somebody was commenting. I don't know if you want to provide some input on that. Maybe we're saying something that's way out of line here, and you can get us back.
No, thank you, David. I wanted to clarify for everybody that the number of units proposed through this development is actually 168, not 68.
Right. So the 1 in 3 ratio is what drives that number. And I guess the only question I would have is that number, how real is that number, I guess, in terms of the actual demand for parking for people that are in this state, in a retirement village like that. And for example, I assume one of those floors where you have the dining on it is probably a floor where people are in a wandering state, and that they might be not even all let out of that floor, and that's why they're having a dining area on that floor. So, I mean, that would be the question. I mean, the other option is if you remove units and you make another 9th floor, that might free up a scenario and maybe bring up the games room up to one of the ground level or the 2nd floor areas. And if you made another full floor 9th, that might, give you the flexibility to put maybe some of the parking underground, and that way create the that outdoor space that I think that we've all identified as missing in the inside of that would have a lot of benefits to the project for both the daycare and the residential components. So. Anyway, thanks for your clarification, Devin. And again, I don't know if the proponent has any questions of us or we're finished.
I just wanted to clarify, the units in the basement, they're not meant for seniors. They're meant as short-term rooms for overnight staff.
Oh.
Yes, but I do like the idea of an additional floor, subject.
Yeah, probably.
Because I'm not crazy about the basement myself. So I like what I'm hearing about adding more landscaping, a garden, and reducing parking. And one thing we didn't discuss with staff, because we wanted to reduce the variances we're bringing, but there is room to reduce parking because for two reasons. First, the average age of seniors moving to a retirement home is increasing because of the province's efforts towards aging at home. So by the time somebody moves to a retirement home, they're not really driving. They're above 70 years, 70 or 80, that's the age. And we also have 2 floors that are what they call secured floors. So those are for people who are wandering or, they can't be trusted to leave for their own safety. So they're not driving.
Well, I would encourage you to exercise that opportunity to reduce parking. I think it's the right thing to do. If we don't need it, let's not build it and let's make more green space. And I think we can all see that there would be some significant benefits to this project if you were able to reduce that area and build a more convincing and commodious amenity space in the inside wings of that space. So anyway, go for it. That's my vote. Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation. It was helpful, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. Otherwise, I think we're good here. We can go on to our next adventure. Thank you, everybody.
I just want to say thank you so much for your constructive comments. I was afraid of the design review panel. This is my first time with the panel, but I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Well, that's good. We're trying to be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a better city altogether. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That will conclude our design review panel meeting today. Everyone, have a great day. Bye now.
You take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.